The Androscoggin River is the heart life of the towns and cities of Maine through which it passes, gliding sinuously for 200 miles through stretching valleys from the New Hampshire border to Brunswick and out to the ocean. Lakes, brooks, and streams, like veins, nourish the river at warming season, bringing easy movement to the winter's ice stillness. The soft flowing of the released waters quietly reflect the church spires, industrial stacks, and tight-budded trees at bankside, and the meandering course measures for geologic time once again the renewal of the coming of spring. When it sometimes happens that prolonged rains merge with the spring melt of rising mountains and snow-laden fields, then silently the engorged waters rise to overflow and create a swelling beyond containment. Converging now, all the waters rush rampantly out of control, and their life source turns to crashing destruction, uprooting all that stands in its way. We see the first evidence of what was yet to come when a majestic pine tree at the top of the Great Falls blew down across power and telephone lines. With high-tension power lines down, an instantaneous traffic jam is created at 2:17 p.m. on a main route of the town. The first damage of a long 46 hours ahead of us. Police and fire department units arrive at the scene of damage and call for a Central Maine Power Company repair crew. Working in torrential rain and high wind, the power company repairmen temporarily reroute the lines, but making permanent repair needs extra help, so a crew from Farmington is called in to assist. The Rumford Highway Department removes the fallen tree with chainsaws as the river continues to rise. The power company repairmen work throughout the gray afternoon and into the night until 11 o'clock. By this time, the Farmington crew cannot return through flooded roads to its home base, so is harbored by the company at a local motel. Telephone calls begin, flooded cellars, stranded cars and people, and the need for boat rescues. In the entire emergency, thousands of telephone calls will be received at the fire and police departments. This rescue of 2 people in a truck at Scotty's entailed the transportation by boat and the relay use of ropes tied around the waist to prevent being swept away by the swift current. Another rescue at the Lincoln Avenue ballpark requires guiding the rescue boat by pulling it along the park's barbed wire fence, tying off at a post, and letting the boat freely flow with the downstream current to the vehicle and its passengers. It is 10:30 at night on this Tuesday, and flow readings of the river from official sources measure the rise at 40,000 cubic feet per second, almost double the afternoon reading of 24,400 feet per second. Now, with the weather reports indicating no lessening of rainfall for the next 24 hours, an informal meeting is held at the fire station. It is decided that an emergency situation can exist and other department heads are notified. The town manager, highway department foreman, police chief, fire chief, ambulance service director gather to study river flow charts, floodplain maps, and to devise a plan for coping with the emergency. These plans include evacuation procedures, closing of roads, and the dispatching of fire trucks and personnel to various locations of the town. It is also decided to have the fire department personnel monitor closely the rise in inches of the river at strategic locations. And it is also decided to call for a special meeting of the Rumford Board of Selectmen. At that selectmen's meeting, a state of emergency for the town of Rumford will be officially declared, and at this same meeting, the town's businesses will be requested not to open in order to minimize traffic. Monitoring the river's rise is accomplished by driving stakes and using roadside guardrails at different locations for measuring. The average reading is 2.5 inches every 10 minutes, and now, at 1 a.m. on Wednesday, April Fool's Day, the flow reading over the dam is 43,900 cubic feet per second, an increase of almost 4,000 cubic feet per second in 2.5 hours. Simultaneously with these readings, warnings of potential evacuation are given to residents of low-lying areas. Understandably, some of the homeowners refuse to heed the warning and elect to stay with their homes and possessions. In fact, one resident states that he and his goats will remain in the home no matter how high the water rises. This boy and his bicycle are treading water on Prospect Avenue in the Virginia section of town. Flow readings on this April 1st at 9 a.m. are 54,200 cubic feet per second. As the water's rapid rise indicates that some parts of the town will be cut off, a fire truck and personnel are dispatched to the Virginia School to remain there until waters recede. The marker at the corner of Free Street is a geologic marker seen on the upper right corner of the building's window just above the truck's windshield wiper. This marker indicates the level of the 1936 flood. Now we are seeing a vehicle traveling through the waters on the South Rumford Road. This is also in the South Rumford part of town. The next few scenes are taped from the Mexico Plaza and the Gregory Inn in Mexico. business district in Mexico. Route 2 is the main east-west artery through Rumford in Mexico, connecting it to the rest of the state. On Wednesday by 2 p.m., the flow reading of the Androscoggin is 59,800 cubic feet per second, an amount over 5,000 cubic feet per second since 5 hours earlier. And the waters are still rising threateningly, and already there is no exit either north or south out of Rumford. By 2 hours later, at 4 p.m., the Muskie building had been evacuated. The occupants of the Hotel Harris had been moved out. All the bridges into the town had been closed, and the island had been sealed off. And now, throughout the blackened night, there is an eerie stillness of movement, and the drumming of current rainfall changes to the muffled silence of snowfall, as access to the outside world is closed to all inhabitants of Rumford, and we are isolated. The waters peaked at 8 p.m. on Wednesday. Flow readings were 60,800 cubic feet per second, but it is not until daylight on Thursday that we can see the total effect of this flood's devastation. After 46 hours of watching our town go underwater, now is the time of cleaning up. In the course of meeting the emergency, working throughout the flood, and now cleaning up, many people, both town employees and volunteers, spent an exhausting 7 days and nights with little sleep and away from their homes. Roads are plowed to remove the debris which has floated in, and affected businesses are closely guarded to prevent looting. There are no reported breaks or reported looting during the entire emergency. Access to the affected area is very limited, causing considerable aggravation for law enforcement personnel enforcing the roadblocks. As businesses became accessible, managers were allowed through the barricades and were escorted to evaluate their properties. They were also asked to organize their workforces for passage through the barricades. Businesses in the affected areas received at least 15 inches of water on the floor. From the second-story porch of this building, my father was evacuated by boat during the 1936 flood. Doctors, hospital and ambulance personnel are quick to respond to medical emergencies and to advise on potential health hazards. Occupants of the Muskie Building and the Hotel Harris are evacuated by school bus to the Rumford High School. At the Rumford High School, this cafeteria was used to house and feed evacuees, stranded travelers, tourists, exhausted Central Maine Power Company repairmen, and people with no place to go on such a short notice. Food, cots, mattresses, blankets, television sets have been brought in to ease the feeling of helplessness. These pictures are of the 1936 flood and show the flooding of one part of the island and the washout at Moss Bridge. Following the flood of 1936, a WPA project constructed this retaining wall at the east end of Moss Bridge. This wall was built by many of the current inhabitants of Rumford, and its full worth had not been realized until this week, when it prevented the Androscoggin River from overflowing onto the island, since this wall had not been tested for durability before this week. Evacuating the Muskie building and the Hotel Harris occupants became a precautionary measure. In emergencies such as this, many unselfish acts have gone unnoticed, such as those of owners of all-terrain vehicles, skidders and tractors, which are pressed into service to help in any way they can. The volunteered aid from the owners of these vehicles is another example of the neighbor helping neighbor attitude that is so common during this emergency. People return to their vehicles, stranded by the washed-out roads and ruined by mud and silt. With waters receding as quickly as they rose, fire trucks and personnel are recalled from Boise Cascade Mobile Garage and Virginia School. With the waters receding, more damage is becoming quite evident. Foundations have collapsed, silt and mud are everywhere, furniture is upside down, family pictures and albums are worthless, cherished possessions and family heirlooms destroyed. Dreams have been washed away. The heartbreak of such a blow cannot be measured in dollar value. Organizations such as the American Red Cross, the Church of the Brethren, the Salvation Army, and hundreds of volunteers are quick to respond to the emergency. Condemning buildings is also a necessary part of a disaster such as this. This building, showing the high water mark under the window, is condemned after its foundation collapsed. Telephones are constantly ringing. People with various problems ask advice such as on how to cope with fuel tanks upset by the waters because oil has spilled throughout the cellars. Absorbent booms and blankets are placed in affected areas. Due to the vast amounts needed, supplies are quickly exhausted, so a truck is sent to the Department of Environmental Protection Agency in Augusta to replenish supplies and to replace items already on loan from Boise Cascade. Items such as these are available to the fire department from Boise Cascade whenever they are requested. Still more calls requesting cellar pumping. 5 crews are busy constantly pumping. The silt and mud are taking their toll on equipment, causing delay or breakdown. This feeding unit is preparing 250 meals per day at the American Legion kitchen facility. This food is for volunteers of a church organization in the field, completely unnoticed by most, who are cleaning up entire homes. Many of these volunteers have been flown in from throughout the United States. One of the several unexpected potential hazards of the flooding was the erosion of land under this massive propane tank, which could have become a floating firebomb. But the river became merciful and stopped its rising. Nature, too, began its recovery from the torrents, and calm was restoring to the land and its people. There is a beauty in the bellow of the blast and a creative renewal of life that attends all destruction. I am proud to live in and be a part of Rumford, where public service departments, with many individual volunteers of the town, schools, civic organization, people who loaned their tapes for this presentation, people like you who are buying these video cassettes, the availability of product and services listed in the credits of this production will help ease the pain of a ruthless rage.